also invite over here Chelsea Santos. Chelsea, as I told you all yesterday, has been a student of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology for BA and MA. And she joined as an assistant curator in Udaipur. She is doing a lot of work out there. And none other than that, she said, let us do this together. And I said, why not? Let us go ahead with it. So Chelsea, I shall not waste my time. I think please take over here and please introduce Rajaram Sharma and I think his brother Rajat Sharma to all of us, and let us start with. Yes, am I right, Rajat Sharma ji? Okay. Chelsea?
Yeah.
Are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Right, very good. So thank you once again. Jason, I hand over to you and please give it to Chelsea.
Yes. Chelsea, could you just turn on your video, please? And
my video is on.
Thank you so much. Yes, you've got it.
Jason, can you also start the slideshow?
Sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Good evening to all of you. Today, we're going to be doing a session on the Pichwai paintings. Pichwai paintings of Rajasthan, like Anita ma'am has rightly introduced. Jason, next slide. Before we jump into the workshop, let us first break up this word of Pichwai. The word Pichwai is a Sanskrit word. When broken down, we have pitch, which means something that is behind, and wai, which is something that is hung. So it is essentially a painting that is hung behind something. Now let's see what is it that we are talking about. Before we go into the details of this painting, let us learn a little bit about the history and the philosophy behind it. I've put down 16th and 17th century, what happened during this time. 17th century is when the art was started to come into practice. We have several artists pursuing this art. But if you talk about the philosophy, it dates a century prior to that. It is the 16th century. Anita ma'am already spoke about it. The Pushti Marg, a sect of Hinduism that was started by Sri Vallabhacharya, an Indian philosopher. Essentially, it means a path of devotion, of bhakti, of love, of the grace of God. And it is a Vaishnava Advaita philosophy. Vaishnava as in Vishnu and his forms, the belief in Vishnu and his forms, and Advaita is a philosophy which believes that the human soul, which is finite, and the supreme cosmic soul, which is infinite, is actually one and the same. And in order to the ultimate goal is to unite with that, to realize this oneness of us. And in order to do this, in order to connect with the supreme cosmic infinite soul, which is essentially God, which is here in this case a Vaishnav God, one has to follow the Pushti Marg, or the path of devotion, path of grace and love and devotion. And essentially this is reflected in the art itself. The god right here is Srinathji. Srinathji, who is Srinathji? Srinathji is a form of Sri Krishna, and we'll be talking a little bit more about it in the next slide. The area where this style of paintings developed in is Nathdwara. Nathdwara is a region in a small town which is very close to Udaipur, which is where I work. And all of this, Udaipur, Nathdwara, all of it falls under the region of Mewar, the erstwhile state of Mewar. And there's a particular temple in Nathdwara called Srinathji Haveli, or the temple of Srinathji, which is where which is the context within which you find these paintings and this style of paintings that eventually comes out of this region. And when we said that these paintings were hung behind something, so this is exactly what we are talking about. These Pichwai paintings formed a background, a backdrop to the idol, the main idol of Srinathji, the form of Krishna, in these temples. And what purpose did they serve? They serve to, in a way, educate the people who are coming to these these places of worship, about the several stories about Srinathji, about Krishna, the several episodes in the lives of Srinathji and Krishna. And Jason, next slide, please. So now we'll break up uh, the iconography of Srinathji further. Srinathji as a manifestation of Krishna, like I said, Srinathji essentially is an a manifestation of Krishna in the form of a 7-year-old boy. And because he is a manifestation of Krishna, he resembles, he picks up on certain qualities. So if you see the image to the left, you will see him surrounded by cows. Krishna is known to be a cowherd. You will also see in the same image, you will see the lotus. Lotus is also something that is associated with Krishna. It symbolizes purity. It symbolizes something that is eternal. It also symbolizes something that is pure, and essentially what the Pichwai paintings is all about, something pure and eternal. And the next image we have, if you see the thing on Krishna's head, it is a very stylized version of the peacock feather, something that is associated with Krishna traditionally. And you see his hand, it's raised in this fashion, and he is holding something which is, it looks very small, but it is actually, it stands to depict the Mount Govardhan. And there's an interesting story about how Krishna as a child, he on his little finger, he raises the Mount Govardhan and protects the people, the villagers, from the torrential rains brought on by Lord Indra, which was almost on the verge of drowning out the entire city or the town. So this is a classic depiction of Srinathji, of Krishna, whatever. And look at the eyes. This is a very typical way of depicting Srinathji. You will have in Pichwai paintings, you'll have very big eyes, very prominent eyes, prominent facial features, and also look at the chin, how it is depicted. If you look at the image to the extreme right, which is a full-fledged image, this painting actually is in the City Palace Museum of Udaipur, and you can tell how much attention has been paid to the details. So a lot of attention to the ornamentation, to the facial features, and you will always find a lot of flora and fauna in these paintings. Jason, please, next slide. Now I'd like to talk about how these Pichwai paintings relate to the other paintings, very briefly, to the other paintings in the region it developed in. So I said that this painting developed in the region of Mewad. Mewad is where you have Udaipur, you have Chittorgarh, you have Kumbhalgarh, places such as this, and Nathdwara included. So Pichwai paintings are known to have originated or derived its influence from the Mewad miniature paintings, which Jason likely spoke about very well in his session yesterday. And the Mewad paintings were essentially paintings on paper. And the next we have the Fud and the Pichwai paintings, which was a different medium. The style is almost the same. The color palettes are the same, pretty much the same. But again, the region-wise, across the different regions, you have different color schemes and all coming into play. The reason being the various influences such as geography, history, geography, topography, climatic conditions, preferences of the artist, available resources, preferences of the patrons. So you will see a lot of differences across the various sub-schools of the Mewad school of miniature paintings. The Fud painting, again, like I said, it's a different medium from the Mewad miniature paintings. It is made on cloth, as also the Pichwai paintings, which are generally made on cloth, originally, traditionally. But if you see the Fud image that is on this screen, which is from our collection, The Glorious History of Mewad Fud. This is a small detail from it. I've used this to just give you an idea about how starkly different yet similar it is to this kind of a painting, which developed in the same region of Mewad. I'd like you to look at the way the features have been portrayed and the kind of color that you find associated in this region. And now we will jump on to the Pichwai. Jason, next slide, please. The Pichwai paintings are known to be very similar to the Fud in the terms of the technique. It's a cloth painting. Um, they either use cotton cloth or a silk, and on which the artist would eventually work. We'll talk about the technique later, a little bit later. But if you talk about the physical features, if you saw the painting of the Fud, you would see that this is clearly very much different in terms of the color palette. There you would have very vibrant shades of red, very dark red, yellow, and the light colors. But here you have a very toned down, a mellow tone, but very vibrant nonetheless. There's a lot of attention that is paid to the physical features. Like I said, big eyes, very much ornate, lots of jewelry, very beautiful textiles that are depicted. Flora and fauna is very popularly depicted. There's the next slide, please. This is a very that is Rajaramji in the picture, and this is some of his works. You can see Krishna in this with his consort. I'd like you to pay attention to again the facial features, very pointed noses and big eyes, a little bit big eyes, very ornate clothing and jewelry, and you can see the prolific use of gold and silver for depicting these. Also look at the manner in which the background has been depicted, the flora. You can see the border. You have cows depicted, peacocks prolifically depicted, and if you look at the image to the left, where it is you get a bigger picture of it. You can see swan. You can see lotus, again, popular icon. Jason, next slide, please. You get a better image of the physical features, the pointed nose, big eyes, the color palette in use. Just the next slide. And now we come to what is depicted in these paintings. So like I said, it is essentially Srinathji, Krishna being depicted in these paintings, but you would find it's not just one type of painting. You would have several types, several themes emerging out of this this very style of painting. As many as 30 themes based on festivals are prevalent in this style of painting. So just discussing a few of them, we have Janmashtami, or the birth of Krishna. Then you have Sharad Purnima, or the first full moon after the birth. Ras Leela again is a very popular depiction. You have Krishna and the gopis, the milkmaids surrounding him. The incident is to celebrate the full moon of Sharad Purnima, like we said. The Annakut, or the Govardhan Puja, is the most popular depiction. We saw the image earlier with Krishna with his hand raised, Srinathji with his hand raised, holding the Mount Govardhan in his hand. Gopashtami is the classic depiction. You can see it in this image here, where Krishna, as a cowherd, he's surrounded by a lot of cows. And all of these themes, all of these paintings, each are produced in different, based on the festival, they produce at different points of time. So you would have different colors associated with these different themes. So you would have maybe a darker shade for certain themes, say for the full moon, for example. And we could have a look at some of these paintings with Rajaramji when he takes over the session. Jason, next slide, please. And now we come to how these, a little bit on the technique about making the paint. Jason already spoke to you about this, but I'm running through it once again. So first you have the first stage where you have mineral colors, essentially mineral colors. You could also have natural, plant-based and animal-based colors that are used. It's in a very solid form. It is then powdered down, and it is a very tedious task. And um, you would think that this is it requires a lot of energy, but I've heard elsewhere that even in miniature paintings, it's often a woman who would engage in this task of powdering down the pigments, which is a very tedious task, like I said. And so it's powdered down, and then it is combined with a binder, which would be an adhesive or a glue, plant-based gums. If it is something to be, if you don't need the gum to be very, the pigment, the paint to be too strong, you could use a plant-based gum. But if you need it to be stronger, you could use, say, fish glue, or if you're still further, you could have animal glue in place, but mostly plant-based gum will do. And so you mix the pigment, you combine it with the adhesive or the binder, and then you have your paint. It is painted with brushes made out of animal hair, preferably squirrel hair, because it enables you to have achieve very fine strokes. And the squirrel hair is fastened onto a bamboo stick, and then you're free to paint. Jason, next slide. So this is the stages. You first the art. So basically, it is, these pitchwais are paintings on cloth, and the cloth is, say, cotton or silk. It is starched, and over which once it's starched, it is required that it is burnished. It is smoothened out for the artist to be conveniently draw out and execute his painting. So once it's burnished, you have the line drawings that are put into place, and then you have, eventually you fill in the bold colors, fill in all the background colors, and then you see the last stage where you fill in the extra details. You can also notice that it is substantially toned down. Even though there is more ornamentation, there is more detailing that is done, the color has literally toned down quite a bit. It is more enriched, and it is more detailed and refined. Please, the next slide, please. And then you have the finishing touches. So once all the details have been done and executed to perfection, you have you have a little bit of silver and gold. In fact, quite a lot of silver and gold that is added to the painting. Essentially, it is a powdered form that is combined with an adhesive and applied, and then it is burnished with an agate stone. You can see it at the center, also to the top, the stone with the wooden stick. This enables the silver and the gold to come out even more and have an enhanced, enriched look. Locally, this stone is called the Hakik Patthar. Okay, we can have the next slide. Now we like to talk about the evolution, how this has changed. Earlier, like I said, traditionally, these were found in context of temples. We have Nathdwara being the classic case. However, the context has substantially changed over the years, and likely so, because it is needed that it is a very much needed move for the art to survive. So the context has changed. These paintings are no longer constrained to the temple premises. You would find them across the globe, beyond Nathdwara, across the globe, in houses, in people who are ready to patronize the art, amongst people who are ready to patronize the art, and previously in temples where they would be very large size paintings. They are now, you could have them even a very small size painting as well, because they are more convenient and more affordable, and it is something that a visitor to, for example, Nathdwara, could easily take back with them. The mediums have changed. What started as a cloth painting, now eventually you find them in several other mediums. You have pitchwais on paper. You have them as murals. The one to the image on the screen is from the Bhim Vilas at the City Palace Museum of Udaipur. You would also find rich embroidered pieces of Pichwai as well. Materials have changed as all of you are doing today as well. You are producing Pichwai paintings, but you're using different material. You're using modern day paper, you're using contemporary paints and ready-made store-bought paints and brushes. And so also artists have chosen to, some of the artists have chosen to shift to a new contemporary styles of working out these paintings. So you have um, the traditional way of reducing the pigments, which is very tedious, even of making the brushes, very tedious, time consuming, being replaced by more modern and contemporary uh, options. And fortunately for us, we have few artists that continue and practice and keep up the traditional way of producing these paintings. Nonetheless, despite these paintings existing in their contemporary forms, they still try to live up to the whole idea of these paintings, wherein the artists feel and connect to the paintings. They believe this to be a means of reaching out and connecting with their God as a way of devotion to their God, creating these paintings as a means of connecting and being one with the God. Jason, next slide. And now we would jump on to who is our artist for the session. We have Mr. Rajaram Sharma. He's a traditional artist from Udaipur itself. He's currently based in Udaipur. He is presently running his independent studio called Chitrashala. Anita ma'am has already spoken about how he started very young in this field at the tender age of 13 years old, 13 years. And the practice of Guru Shishya Parampara, wherein a student would essentially travel beyond his or her home, and reside with the teacher at their residence or at their school and learn from them, is what Mr. Rajaram Sharma did. And for 13 long years, he stayed with Tulsidas Ji Chitrakar at the head priest of Nathdwara back then, and he learned from him for years. And eventually, he went on and learned from several other mentors and teachers. And today, he continues the traditional method of producing these paintings. He has, of course, introduced contemporary styles within the traditional means of producing them, but yeah, so I would like to now call on Mr. Rajaram Sharma. Before that, I'd give you some of my details. Jason, next slide. If any of you have any questions and would like to drop them. And the next slide. Yeah. This is our social media handles for the City Palace Museum of Udaipur.